second day running. The Congress was on the streets today protesting. The BJP, the government asking you the same question again, Mr. Pilot. If there's nothing to hide, why create this whole spectacle on the streets of the national capital?
To raise the voice of what we think is legitimate political pressure being used to guide agencies is nothing wrong. And second of all, the attitude of the government, you've seen last 2 days, they have actually fortified our office, our headquarters, every single leader. We are trying to say that we are doing a Gandhian march. They deny permission, they put curfew, 144, really brutish behavior by the police. And all we are trying to do is say that we believe that there are agencies that are under pressure. It's a political point we're trying to make. No one is afraid of investigations. You can do whatever you want. You can investigate. The fact of the matter is that after so many years, it's been raked up purely to let the world know that if you oppose the government of India or the ruling party, they will come down upon you. I think it's a case in point that Mrs. Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi are being specifically targeted on some frivolous charges where no FIR has been made. There's no charge sheet. There's no case. It's just to make a political point that opponents will be crushed with a heavy hand, and no matter who you are, you will be taken to task. But I feel that as a political party, we are within our rights to protest, to demonstrate, and we did not make any speeches. There are no stages. We just wanted to have a Gandhian peaceful march, and for that, our leaders were put in jail, detained, hurt. Some senior people were injured. I think this kind of behavior in a civil society, in a democratic country, is absolutely unacceptable. And I think what they've done by asking Mr. Rahul Gandhi to come and give statements, they can ask 100 times. But we know that ED, Income Tax and CBI are deployed only to suppress the voice of anyone who opposes the BJP. This is the fact that the whole country now knows. But I think the behavior, the attitude, the actions of the government of India and the ruling party certainly are very condemnable, and we will not accept it.
Mr. Pilot, the other criticism that's coming, the Congress's way, is your top leadership was on the streets of the national capital, and the criticism is that the only thing that can get a rise of the Congress party and its top brass is when the Gandhi family is attacked. There are other issues. Why can't the party band together and talk about those issues that you have spoken about?
I think any one of our leaders who's been targeted wrongfully, we are happy to meet all the legal challenges. But this is the top leadership of the party. They're saying that if we can do this to them, then anybody can be suppressed and their voice can be muzzled. Whether it's Mr. Chidambaram or any other person, the whole party stood behind them. But this is very symbolic. I think the way the summons were sent to Mrs. Sonia Gandhi and then to Rahul Gandhi for 2 days in a row is just to put a narrative in the media and the mainstream that unemployment, inflation, price rise, the killing of the Kashmiri Pandits, all of that news should not flow out. Only this event should happen where we use the agencies to somehow ring fence the leadership and put them under pressure, but that won't be, I don't think that's a successful trick that they're trying to do, because the country is now seeing that this is a purely political gimmickry that the BJP is trying to do through government agencies. But as far as the Congress party is concerned, you've seen last 2 days, all of us have just very politely said that we want the world to know how the government of the day is being exposed. But to use brute force to detain people, hundreds of MLAs, MPs, ministers, and even chief ministers are not allowed to meet people who are detained, police stations, FIRs. I mean, the action of the police and the government of India certainly is something that the whole world is watching, and they stand truly exposed.
Mr. Pilot, are we going to see the entire Congress cadre, your leadership now come out? Is this the new face of the Congress, that we're going to see this kind of aggression from the Congress going ahead, or is it just now limited to Rahul Gandhi being questioned and then, of course, Sonia Gandhi being questioned later?
You're reading it completely wrong. There is no aggression from our side. We wanted a simple, plain Padyatra Satyagrah Yagra from our party office to the ED office, just as a show of symbolism that we are ready to face any challenge, any scrutiny, any pressure, but we won't be bogged down. We will ask the tough questions, make the government accountable, ask for transparency. And 8 years later, you can't keep shoving the blame of today's crisis to the previous governments. I think this is something that we wanted to do. But look at the action that the police has taken. I mean, Mr. Chidambaram was injured, Mr. Venugopal, the clothes are being ripped apart, the way the police is acting on leaderships. I think that's something that people are watching. It does not argue well for a civil society. And as far as we are concerned, we will meet every challenge head on, whether it's agencies of the government of India. Politically, we will take BJP head on whenever is required. We are one, we stand together, stand united. And like I said, you can investigate all that you want. Nothing will come out. These are purely baseless, frivolous charges. Nothing will ever come out of it. It's just to create a hype around something that the government can do because they're in power. But nobody remains in power for all times to come.
One final question, Mr. Pilot. You say that the government is trying to do this the timing suspect. Why is the timing suspect? There is no election in order. You still have about 4 or 5 months to go before Gujarat and Himachal votes.
No. There are elections to the President of India. There are elections in two states, then Karnataka, then my own state. So elections are an ongoing cycle. I mean, to keep the country on a boil, to use divisive politics, to talk about, temple and masjid all the time, to suppress and detain political opponents of every party, especially the Congress has been targeted because Congress target is the one that can actually challenge and beat the BJP nationally. At a Pan India level, it is the Congress that can take on the BJP, and the BJP knows that. So Government of India's actions really say that they're somehow scared of what the reactions might be. As far as Mr. Gandhi is concerned, he went and answered all the questions yesterday, and I'm quite surprised how anybody knows what the questions were, what was asked, what was answered. So this also planted leakage of information, which is unverifiable, but is out in the public domain through the media, is also something that should be investigated. Who's telling who what questions were asked? There are people in a room. How does the media get to know? These selective leaks also, I think, show that government has something to hide, and they're trying to tarnish the image of the leadership and assign blame to them when none exists.
No, clearly there have been leaks. We've seen it in the past as well. But Mr. Pilot, one quick question. So is the Congress going to be out in full strength if Mr. Rahul Gandhi is summoned again tomorrow?
Make no mistake, we are all together, united, speaking in one voice, and we are speaking against the injustice and the brutal behavior of the government, the biased way in the way agencies have acted, and they are simply targeting leaders just to sully their image and keep them under pressure. But that will not work. We are on the street. We will not only do the politics of Mr. Father of our nation. We are a Gandhian party. We have a tradition to follow. We'll do everything we want, but we will not be bogged down by the violent behavior of the police and the government.